Welcome back to the channel, Sunshines. If you've been following along, you'll know this is the final episode of our Peak mini series, the finale if you will, where you'll see how I made the head for my costume as well as putting everything together. I'll make sure to include all the materials in the description box if you ever have a Comic-Con coming up or some sort of cosplay event that you need to dress up for. I actually found a few pics of previous costumes we've made to show this isn't our first rodeo, but this one was probably even more challenging than making our own carts for Mario Kart a few years ago. Okay, let's get into the easy parts of the costume. So for Peak, you can literally customize your character any way you want. This is my standard character I usually use in the game, so you at least have an idea what to expect, but customize it the way you like. Yellow is my go-to color in the game because it's easy to spot in the terrains, and more often than not, your girl's getting lost in the sauce. So for this bodysuit, it is a full-length one covering your feet, hands, and face. I hate feeling suffocated, so I'm going to wear mine technically backwards because in the reviews, some people said they were able to, so the face part will turn more into a hoodie situation. You could get the ones without the hood. This one was just the cheapest out there at the time, so I went with it. The yellow is a bit see-through, but that won't be a problem because we're gonna be layering clothes on top of it. My boyfriend got the blue one and had no problems, so it all just depends on the color you choose. For reference, I am 5'2" and I'm more on the I enjoy carbs kind of size, so I got a large because when I wear tight things, it starts giving sausage casing, so I feel uncomfortable, but it should be a little tighter so that there's no loose fabric hanging. I probably would have been okay in a medium because I'm so short. Now for the shirt, I found this Hawaiian shirt that isn't an exact match to my character, but it's the right idea. I didn't want to create mine from scratch because this costume was already a lot of work, so I found this red shirt online. For reference, I got a size medium because it is a men's shirt and it was perfect. It was one of the most reasonably priced Hawaiian shirts I could find, and the material was so soft and lightweight, it was perfect for my costume. On top of that, it came in super fast and the print on it is gorgeous and vibrant. I'm so excited to see it all come together. Next up, we have the skirt I will be using. I purchased an XL because I needed this to go over my bodysuit, so I needed some space. It does have built-in shorts, so it's a skirt in the front, shorts in the back situation, a little skort action if you will, which is right up my alley as a millennial. The only downfall was that it is see-through, but I'll be layering so much that it shouldn't be an issue. Last time I checked, it is sold out and I won't be recommending it, but the idea is there. I'm sure you'll be able to find a better beige skirt in the stores. Again, I'm lazy and couldn't be bothered to search anywhere other than on my phone in my bed. Now let's get into materials for the head. For the glue, we're using contact cement glue. This is the only thing I could find when I was in the store. I know there's a few different options, but I had to buy this bottle so I could apply it more easily. I just grabbed this from the baking section. The smell of this glue is very, very strong. Please use it in a well-ventilated area and wear the proper protection while using it, or you will be visiting the heavens like I did in our last video when I tried using E6000 glue. For the caulk, I just picked this one up. This specific one is paintable, which I didn't end up painting it, but good to know it's an option. The caulk is to seal up any cracks and spaces that need to be filled in between the segments of the head. Now this is optional, but I bought felt and foam tacky glue to glue my felt to my head. Everyone else I saw spray painted their heads, but I live in an apartment complex and I don't have the space to freely spray paint outside. So if you have that same problem, wrapping your head in felt is a great alternative. The glue is very thick, so I used a paper towel to spread it out on my foam and it worked fine. For the edges of the felt, it didn't work too well, so I used this for the surface area and then used a stronger glue for the ends of the felt to seal it. Now, this is the mesh I use for the eyes. I'm going to paint it later on using makeup sponges, and I grabbed this dark blue paint for the iris part of the eye and black paint for the back of the mesh so that it makes it easier to see out of. On to the creation of the head. So you'll need some kind of inflatable ball to work with. The pack I bought online had multiple in it, so I used one to cut a segment out to use as my outline for my panels. The head will be made out of EVA foam, which a lot of cosplayers use to create their outfits. This one is 6mm and I got it in white since my felt will be yellow, and white would be a good base for it since it's a lighter color. First, I just used that segment I cut out from the ball and traced it onto my EVA foam. The foam is just thin enough that I was able to use regular scissors to cut it out. Once I got the first panel, I started using it as my template and cut out 5 more panels to match the ball. You'll see here that it is already naturally curling, which will be helpful in forming the shape of the head. I'm just using a heat gun to heat up the foam so that I can shape it by placing it on top of the blown up ball. I'm just being careful here because I don't want to burn the ball either, so just be aware of that. After I had the shape I wanted, I just used some tape to tape the pieces together. I wanted to visually see if it was working out the way I thought it would, and it seemed to look good, so I proceeded with gluing it together. Also, we cut the bottom of our heads where our actual head will be going into, and we just cut a little of it so we could adjust it later because your girl got a dome on her. Like, I'm talking, it would take you a few days to walk across my forehead if you had to. We're talking Sahara Desert landscape. Alright, let me stop roasting myself. Again, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area when working with this glue and wearing the proper protection. I pre-cut a section for the eyes because I thought I'd have trouble cutting it after gluing everything together. Don't do this. I didn't even end up using those holes I made because after gluing it all together, I thought another side of my head actually looked nicer, so I cut it for no reason. But this part was probably the most time-consuming and the most difficult part of the whole series. Obviously, these sections are not cut by a machine or professional, so they don't line up perfectly, so it takes some time for the glue to get tacky and stick together. You'll probably get frustrated because you're trying to keep the pieces together and the top portion will be peeling away while you're working on the bottom portion of it. Just be patient with it and push it together as much as you can, holding it in place. Once the glue starts to adhere, it's not too bad. It just takes a bit for the glue to get tacky and stick. You'll find a good method once you get the hang of it, and I wish I had a good method to share, but honestly, I just worked in small sections until the glue started doing its thing. It may even be helpful to have a partner help you to hold the top of the panel while you hold the bottom. If you want to speed up the process, I'm sure that would be helpful. Unfortunately, my assistant was working on his own head, so we were both just sitting on the struggle bus, cussing up a storm because it was also hot outside. But based on my research, contact cement is the best you can use for a project like this. It was just our first time using it, so it was a learning experience. It's okay if it's not perfect because I ended up filling the cracks and holes with caulk. I forgot to record that part, but all I did was apply the caulk where I wanted and then used a little bit of water to kind of smooth it out if I needed to. Once it dried, it came out like this. I probably could have added a little more to smooth it out, but it was my first try. I was happy enough with how it came out. Here is another shot of the bottom of the head. For ours, we made a few little slits in the seams along the bottom of the head so that each panel was a little flexible for us to bend whenever we put it on. For the face, I just screenshot my character from the game and made the face pretty much the size of a sheet of paper. I used cardstock to make it a little more sturdy. The mouth I did have to make larger since it happened to be placed in the middle of the seam of the head, so I needed to compensate for that. I just cut my template out and then placed it on my head and traced it with a pencil so I know where to cut. Now this bad boy is pretty good. It's made to cut thick material like foam, cardboard, cork, leather. They're from Fiskars and saved my life because using regular scissors was a bit tricky when trying to cut out a circle out of this foam material. I was very lucky to find these on sale before Joann's closed for good, so I definitely recommend them if you work with thicker materials often. You'll see here I'm using my sharp scissors to try to get a little opening going before I use my thicker scissors to cut the rest, and did the same for the other eye. Moving on to the felt part, I made the details like the eyelashes and mouth out of black felt. I used my template I cut out earlier and taped it down so I could cut the pieces out since I can't really trace onto black felt. My character also has cheeks, but I was so tired at this point I didn't add them. I thought it still looked cute without them, so I decided to not add any more work to my costume. Now, I also forgot to record me attaching the felt. This project took a span of a few days, so I apologize for forgetting. Y'all, I was so locked in I wasn't even thinking about it. I just wanted to get it over with, but you'll see here that there are 6 panels total, and when I was wrapping it with felt, I wrapped 2 panels at a time. So I laid my felt on the head and cut out as much felt as I thought I needed to wrap those 2 panels. Working on the first panel, I laid the felt down as flat as I could on the surface and glued it down. Once I had that glued down, I worked on the second panel and laid that felt as flat as I could on the surface again and glued it down. After you do that, you'll notice that the felt in the center of both panels will be raised because it's a round object you're trying to cover. To fix that, just pinch that extra fabric and cut straight down that fold as far as you need to until it reaches the part of the fabric that lays flat. This will give you 2 flaps to work with. You'll just glue 1 flap down, cutting any extra fabric you need to, and then the second flap, you'll just glue that down on top of the first, kind of layering it so there's no gap in between. You'll need to trim it a little bit to make it look nice, but it should save you from cutting out each panel individually and gluing it together. You'll do this for the top and the bottom of the felt. This will allow you to lay the fabric flat on the panels. If that's too difficult for you, you can just simply cut out felt for each panel and attach it that way as well. Either way, it'll give you the same result, just 2 different methods. At the top, you see that we kept the same shape of the panels and just overlapped them, but at the bottom, we just cut it and folded it inside the head. For the eyes, I just cut an opening in the center and then cut straight lines to the edge of the eyeball so that I could fold those pieces into the head. This is what it looks like from the inside. This covers up the edge of where the eye will be. You'll also see I cut a paper towel roll down and then cut 4 slits into it and bent it so it will sit at the top of my head. This helped keep the head steady on top of my actual head, and also so I could see through the eye holes I created. You don't want to be looking like a bobblehead walking around. I just crudely taped it because it was the easiest way for me and it stayed. Now you'll see this mini padded envelope taped crudely to the back of the head. This is actually filled with Dollar Tree decorative rocks. Why, you may ask? Well, when I tried putting my head on, it kept leaning forward, so I needed something a little heavier to balance the weight, and the rocks allowed me to add or subtract the weight. I think I played around with the weight maybe once or twice and was able to find what worked so that my head no longer fell forward when I was wearing it. These are the rocks that I just happened to have extra of from one of my old projects, and you'll see I just added it to the envelope and permanently closed it once I figured out the correct weight so I don't have rocks falling on my head while wearing it, and it worked very well. So now I'm just gluing down the felt details onto my face. I just used this fabric glue I had. You could also probably just use hot glue if you wanted, since it's just felt on felt. For my boyfriend's costume, his character has eyebrows, so for his, he used extra EVA foam we had and cut it to the shape he needed and covered that with black felt so that it gave a nice effect to the face, which looked very nice. I'll show you his costume at the end of the video as well. Now for the final piece. Making the eyes. I bought this really nice mesh that allows you to look through it, but my eyes are a little more detailed, so I had to use acrylic paint to paint the details. People suggested to paint the inside of the eye black so that when you're looking out of your eyes, it will be easier to see through them, so originally I painted the insides of my eyes black. I don't know if y'all ever had this ice cream sandwich, but these are my favorite. This one has chocolate and vanilla in it. Ooh, so good. But here is where I went wrong when painting. Disclaimer, this is a personal issue. I got tired of dabbing, so I increased the amount of paint I was using, which caused the paint to bleed through to the other side. Which, if you're painting the other side, probably not a big deal, but I needed certain parts of the other side to stay white for the design of my eye. I tried scraping it off and painting it with white paint, but it just made it worse, so I had to start over. Being extra careful this time because I was about to run out of the mesh because I split this mesh amongst my siblings. So to not risk anything, I skipped painting the back black because when we walk around, it's gonna be nighttime and it probably won't be an issue. It most likely would be more helpful for people wearing this during the daytime. Again, it's my first time making something like this, so I can't say for sure, but I assume that's the reasoning behind painting the other side black. For material's sake, I skipped that part this time, so I printed my face again and I put my mesh on top of it so I could use it as a guide while painting. Since the parts I'm painting has a very specific shape, I had to use a paintbrush because the sponge would not give me crisp lines like a paintbrush would. So for the paint, I used this dark blue paint, making sure that I tried my best to keep the mesh as flat as possible so that it wouldn't leak too much to the other side and clog the holes. I put a couple of layers down because I could see the white underneath it, so a few layers helped with that. It probably would have looked even better if I was able to paint the backside black, but I didn't want to risk it, but do what you will with that information. Once I finished painting it, I made sure to take it off the paper because I don't want the paint to stick to the paper and the paper be stuck to my mesh. I accidentally did that to my boyfriend's eyes and had to rip the paper off a little bit, so make sure you don't forget it if you use that method. Some holes did clog a little bit, but I just used a toothpick to poke at it and it was fine. I didn't have any here, but I do recommend sealing it with something just so that your paint is protected. Here, I'm just cutting out the mouth that I enlarged a little bit, and now I'm adding the mesh to the head. I didn't feel like dealing with glue, so I just used some good old packaging tape to tape the mesh to the head, and it worked just as well. It kept the sharp edges down and in place, so I was happy about that. Did it again to the other side and perfecto. You now have eyes you can see through. I just used hot glue to glue down the mouth because I ran out of fabric glue, but you'll see it worked just as well. But there you have it. This is how my full costume came out. I'll be honest, I completely forgot about shoes, so I ended up borrowing white Converses, which didn't go with the vibe, but it's all that I had. But in this little montage, I just threw on whatever, so ignore that part. For my first time making a head from scratch, I think I did pretty well. Will I ever do it again? Probably not, because I used up every brain cell in my body to get it done. Here is a few photos of my siblings and my boyfriend's costumes. They came out great as well, so hopefully you have some inspo if you're cosplaying peak characters. Like and subscribe if this mini series was helpful for you, and I'd love to know how your experience is if you're a cosplayer. Thanks for hanging out, and I hope to see you in the next one. Love you guys, bye!